He was bail. I thought he was the PPS. He was sitting with the minister.
Might be not wishing to speak. So maybe some...
They can't come in.
They can intervene.
Yeah.
So
Ready? Order. I will call Luke Murphy to move the motion, and I will then call the Minister to respond. There will not be an opportunity for the member in charge to wind up, as is the convention, for a 30-minute debate. Order, order. Luke Murphy to move the motion.
Thank you. I beg to move that this House has considered the government's support for town centres, and I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to lead this important Westminster Hall debate on the future of Britain's town centres under your chairship, Madam Chair. My constituency of Basingstoke, like so many towns across the UK, is grappling with the consequences of years of neglect under successive Conservative governments and the changing habits and shopping trends of consumers. High streets have suffered from an array of pressures made worse, not better, by the policies of the previous administration. For more than a decade, the Conservatives failed to modernise the business rate system, leaving small businesses disproportionately burdened while allowing major online retailers to shirk paying their fair share. The failure to secure our energy supply, to tackle retail crime and the disastrous mini-budget which sent interest rates soaring have all stifled the ambitions of our high street businesses, leaving them grappling with higher costs and lower footfall. I will give way.
Tim Shannon.
Madam Deputy Speaker, or Chair, he said to me, get in early. So I thought that would be, I've taken his word as he's asked me to. He's very clearly outlined the issues for his own town centres. In the past, the devolved administrations, institutions have been given money from government centrally here. I know the Minister will probably maybe answer this when the time comes. And they did that also through the Levelling Up Fund, so there's money did come through. So does the honourable member agree that more needs to be done to promote the economic and the social regeneration of disadvantaged areas? But after all, this is a great United Kingdom, Great Britain and Northern Ireland. We're always better together. We should be helping each other.
Thanks very much. I think it was the honourable gentleman that suggested he might want to come in early than myself. But I thank him for his intervention, and I do agree, but we'll leave the Minister to respond more fully. I will take interventions from a number of members. I'm grateful to those that have made clear in advance. I will try and get through those first. If others want to come in, I will do my best, but conscious that we don't have a huge amount of time. But Basingstoke's Festival Place shopping centre, because of those issues and trends that I highlighted, now contends with long-term vacancies, with some of the largest storefronts like the old Debenhams building sitting empty for years. New businesses all too often open their doors with optimism in the top of town, but often find themselves shuttered within a matter of months. After 14 years of Conservative government, Britain's high streets and town centres have been hollowed out. In 2023 alone, over 10,000 shops closed, according to the Centre for Retail Research. The high turnover of shop fronts leaves not just holes in the high street, but a sense of instability that undermines confidence in the local economy. Yet amid these challenges, there is undeniably an opportunity to breathe new life into our high streets. I will give way.
Sarah Dyke.
Thank you, honourable gentleman, for giving way and for securing this really important debate. Rural market towns are really important. In my constituency in Glastonbury and Somerton, Wincanton is one that would benefit massively from regeneration. And in fact, it was due to receive a considerable amount of funding, £10 million. The council had put together a really strong bid, but yet the former member here was unable to support it. So does the honourable member agree with me that encouraging regeneration in our town centres and boosting footfall is the best way to bring prosperity back to our rural market towns?
Luke Murphy.
I do agree, and I will leave my agreement there. I will be very short in my agreement for interventions for the sake of time, but thank you. I fully agree with that point. Nonetheless, as I said, Basingstoke's town centre is a hub, as many towns and villages are across the country, of remarkable independent businesses that continue to thrive despite years of neglect. From the unique offerings of a freezy in the cherished Willows to the flavours of Chennai Express and the ever-popular Festival Street Kitchen, these diverse ventures highlight the incredible entrepreneurial spirit in our town. This wealth of talent and creativity showcase the untapped potential of small business owners in our town that deserves greater support and investment. I will give way.
No plan.
And I thank my honourable friend. He's making some excellent points with regards to our high street. So the government's recent move to introduce high street rental auctions is a game changer for places like Lee and Atherton. Local businesses like local construction firm WJ Structures, they're eager to regenerate but are often held back by obstructive landlords. So does my honourable friend agree that by empowering businesses with a genuine stake in the area will only boost the local economy? It will create jobs, foster skills and training for industry in communities like mine.
Luke Murphy.
I fully agree with the honourable member and look forward to seeing the role that auctions will play in rejuvenating high streets like those in Basingstoke and in her own constituency. But I also welcome, in talking of government action, the small business access loans that the budget provided, £250 million to the British Business Bank Small Business Loans Programme. But nevertheless, we also know that the high streets of tomorrow will not look like those of the past. We know that the modern consumer is looking for more than a place to shop, but an experience, a reason to visit that goes beyond everyday retail, which is why independent, forward-facing business owners like those running the Dice Tower and the Postbox in Basingstoke, which provide engaging experiences alongside their food and drink offerings, already show that they already understand the habits of their customers. And this kind of event and experience is clearly the future of the high streets. Innovation is the way forward for our town centres, a shift toward more diverse mixed-use developments, integrating housing, leisure, culture, banking hubs, centres of education and public services will help create more vibrant high streets where people want to spend time and money. But alongside innovation, we must also address the factors that deter footfall. I will give way.
Mr. Strathern.
Giving way, I apologise for interrupting him mid-sentence there. He's making a powerful case for the importance of regenerating our high streets with a new modern vision for their success. But would he agree with me that for them to be successful, they must be seen to be safe? And that's why it's so important that this government doesn't tolerate, as the last did, a rise in antisocial behaviour and retail crime, and provides the strong neighbour policing precedence that's required to assure residents that our high streets really are there for them safely when they need them.
Luke Murphy.
I totally agree, and I was literally just about to come on to that point. Antisocial behaviour and retail crime do remain significant barriers to a thriving town centre. Businesses in Basingstoke, like I'm sure in his own constituency, have shared with me their frustrations over theft, vandalism, drug use, knife crime and things like illegal car meets. And these are not merely just nuisances, they are in fact economic threats that drive shoppers away and force businesses to close. And that's why Labour's plan to tackle these challenges head-on, with robust action to tackle antisocial behaviour, stronger powers for local police and more town centre policing, as well as support for businesses to invest in safety measures, are critical to restoring confidence in our town centres. And we know since 2014 our police force has been diminished, with retailers being left to fend for themselves against the so-called low-level crime of shoplifting, which we know is absolutely nothing of the sort. It wrecks their bottom line and puts staff and shoppers in harm's way. And I'm glad to see that the government are tackling shoplifting by reversing the rule under the previous government, which meant that police would not usually investigate shoplifting of goods worth less than £200. Only by putting more police on the streets and empowering them to tackle shoplifting and antisocial behaviour can this Labour government truly bring consumer and business confidence back to town centres like ours in Basingstoke. And I would welcome an update from the Minister on the recent work his department has undertaken to support high street businesses that continue to be victims of antisocial behaviour and retail crime. The recent budget provided £1.9 billion of support to small businesses and the high street in the next financial year by freezing small business multipliers and providing 40% relief on bills for retail, hospitality and leisure properties, up to £110,000 cash cap. But while I welcome these measures, I would also be grateful if, from the Minister, could provide an update on the progress of the Government's plans to deliver the promised permanent reform of business rates. This is absolutely a key issue that's raised with me time and time again whenever I'm in the top of town or speaking to local businesses. I will give way.
Cherie Eastwood.
Honourable member for bringing this to this debate. I really agree with what you've just said. Would you agree with me that businesses are facing not just a cost of living crisis, but a cost of doing business crisis? And in my own constituency of Lagan Valley, unfortunately, HoC, a restaurant that only opened over a year ago, has now had to close, and you've referenced that in your opening remarks. Would you agree with me that it would be useful to hear today from a minister what they intend to do to help our local Indigenous businesses in terms of that cost of doing business crisis?
Murphy?
Absolutely, and it's something that we've seen businesses plagued with over the last 10 to 14 years, and it's really important that we do, as well as improving footfall, stabilising the economy. We've got to tackle those costs that are facing businesses. During the election campaign, the Prime Minister and businessman Theo Pathetis visited the Gabardine, a fantastic independent business in my constituency. And it's great to see Kevin and Fran, who run it, here with us today. And they represent exactly the kind of small business owners we've got to support. Ambitious for their own business, but also for the top of town and Basingstoke as a whole. I rarely have a chat with Kevin that doesn't include a new idea for not just his own business, but for rejuvenating the town centre. I will give way.
Thank you very much for giving way. Hearing about your constituents and the great work they're doing reminds me of the excellent work being done in my constituency of Rugby around the nighttime economy and live music, particularly in places like Inside the 22, which provides live music, and also a pub called The Squirrel. They do great work, and would he agree that it shows that small businesses themselves are very entrepreneurial? They have the ideas about how to regenerate their own towns, and what they need is an empowering ecosystem that I believe this government is seeking to create.
Murphy.
I completely agree with my honourable friend. It's just those kind of businesses, entrepreneurial, seeking not just a better future for their own business, but also for the town and area, local areas as a whole, that we absolutely must support. We must create that supporting environment for them. And like many local business owners, they're also community-minded at the Gabardine, putting on food and refreshments for the recent local remembrance activities as well. And just as my honourable friend was saying, they need to operate in a stable economic environment, which is why I welcome the recent budget to protect the smallest businesses and shore up our economy. It's also important that the government delivers on securing our energy supply with a credible plan to increase the availability of cheap, clean, homegrown sources of power through Great British Energy. But I would also value knowing what more the government can do and is planning to do to support high street businesses in Basingstoke and elsewhere who have been crippled by the weight of soaring energy costs. One of the other issues raised with me by local businesses is around reliable bus routes and public transport. These are essential for driving footfall in towns like Basingstoke, and the government's plans to allow public transport to be put into local hands are indeed a welcome step towards ensuring that every town and village have the bus services and public transport access that they need. I will give way.
Gentlemen, give way. Thank you for securing this debate and allowing me to intervene. What I've noticed in my constituency of South and Eastern Rochford is, and it's very similar to sort of many constituencies up and down the country, 1 in 7 shops is empty. You have a lot of people, owner-operators, wanting to, like, some of your constituents are here today, who want to actually get their town centre going again. They know what's best. And even if you look at sort of how what communities bounced back the quickest after lockdown, it was the communities that had owner-operators to the very, to the front and centre of that. And so, honourable gentlemen that sort of agree with me that infrastructure, buses, routes, all those elements are what the government should be trying to provide, which will enable entrepreneurs and people who are stakeholders in their community to get their communities back and vibrant again.
Murphy.
I thank my honourable friend for his intervention. I completely agree. Public transport plays a role in making town centres accessible, but we've got to think about the wider need for infrastructure as well that supports all modes of travel and ensuring that we get that additional footfall to support entrepreneurs like Kevin and Fran and others that reside in our constituencies as well. And central to this debate is the recognition that town centres are not just about bricks and mortar, but they are ultimately about people. When my neighbours visit the Saturday market at the top of town, I want them to see a bustling town centre with plenty to offer, somewhere that they want to keep coming back to again and again. I will give way.
I thank my honourable friend for bringing this issue to debate today. Bournemouth Town Centre has just had a very busy Christmas period, and we've had some fantastic Christmas lights funded by the Bournemouth Town Centre bid. We've also had the success with the opening of the Ivy locally, which is fantastic, but otherwise the town centre feels like a ghost town. Would my honourable friend agree with me that the rollout of the high street rental auctions, where Bournemouth is a pilot area, could be critical to restoring confidence in our high streets, increase footfall, make our town centres safer, and ultimately help small businesses to grow, and as a consequence help our local economy?
Luke Murphy.
I thank my honourable friend for that intervention. I completely agree, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the role that those auctions can play in Bournemouth and elsewhere, and seeing them rolled out in places like Basingstoke as well in future. I think they're a really exciting innovation. Remember quite where I was. Yes, so I want our town centre to be somewhere for people to keep coming back to be vibrant. And the opportunity is there, but it will take the government, local authorities and our communities and businesses to work together to realise that potential. Last year I stood on a Labour manifesto pledging to breathe new life into our high streets. And in February I've committed to hosting the first Top of Town Summit in my constituency of Basingstoke as a step towards achieving this collaboration. And I hope the department will support efforts in constituencies like mine to break down those barriers that stand in the way of local economic growth. I hope the Minister will also agree with me that delivering a boost to town centres like Basingstoke through tackling antisocial behaviour and retail crime, the scourge of empty shop fronts, soaring energy prices and reforming outdated business rates must be a priority for this government. If we're serious about our milestone on growth in a way that improves local economies, builds up small businesses and puts more money in people's pockets. In conclusion, I would welcome, and I know Basingstoke business owners like Kevin and Fran sat here today who met the Prime Minister during the election campaign, would welcome any updates the Minister can provide on the work the government is doing on these issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The question is that this House has considered government support for town centres. Minister Alex Norris.
Thank you, Ms Vazin. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairship. And I'd like to start by thanking my honourable friend, the member for Basingstoke, for securing this important debate today. And I think the spirit with which he's led it, and despite this being a half-an-hour debate, one of the shorter ones, I think the interest from colleagues, both in terms of being here to intervene, but just being here to listen, shows just how important town centres and their health are to all of our communities, wherever we are across the UK. And I think his diagnosis of the challenge actually was really well put, because no two town centres are the same, but many face, I think all our town centres face the same problems. Lower occupancy rates and footfall due to economic headwinds, due to changing consumer habits, the legacy of austerity on public amenities. Those hollowed out high streets then becoming a breeding ground for crime and antisocial behaviour. And then that feeding a vicious cycle that affects the confidence of consumers and investors alike. I think that is true in Basingstoke. I think that's true in Bulwell, in my constituency. I think that's true in the constituencies of honourable colleagues across the room today. So this is an important debate for all of us. I think a very significant debate for both the government of the day and for Parliament. And I was struck also by what the honourable gentleman said about the entrepreneurial spirit in his community, which we also heard in Rugby as well. And again, as we see across the country, there are brilliant business owners who are taking risks, who are bringing their ideas forward and making them real under very, very difficult circumstances. And quite rightly, they're not looking for the government to operate their enterprise, but they are looking for the government to make their life easier. And I think that's entirely reasonable. So what I will do today, I will cover the points the honourable gentleman made and talk about some of the support that will be coming forward from us as a new government. And then that critical underpinning that says that whatever we do, whatever support we give for business, however good the trading environment, we have to have safe communities. Because if you don't have that, then you can have all the other pieces to it, but people still won't feel safe and won't be able to visit their town centres, and businesses will not be able to thrive. So I'm going to start with regards to the high street itself, and my honourable friends from Lee and Atherton and from Bournemouth referenced high street rental auctions, so I will start there. In December, we brought forward new powers for local authorities to require landlords who have persistently vacant properties to bring those properties back into use. These new regulations will make these tenancies more accessible and affordable for tenants and give local businesses and community enterprise a right to rent valuable space on their high street. We're calling time on those persistent vacancies, and I think that this will be a very significant development in reducing vacancy, improving footfall along the way. And we've heard about the work going on in Bournemouth, and also we're working with Bassetlaw, Darlington and Mansfield as early adopters, and I want as many areas to come forward as possible. And I would really encourage colleagues, Ms Vaz, to talk to their local authorities about getting the best out of these powers. There's a lot of insight that we can support them with centrally. And if they lean into this, this could be a really good way of addressing vacancy and of giving business and local community enterprises their first step. We will continue to invest in the High Street Accelerator model and learn from that about what else we can do to improve communities across the country. But that's telling us a lot about, and again, the Honourable Gentleman mentioned this, that partnership between local communities, between businesses, between property owners who want to see their communities thrive. We heard about business improvement districts as well, convening that family of interested parties to drive forward around a shared vision for the area. But we know that at the moment, and the member for Lagan Valley, I think, put it very elegantly as the cost of doing business crisis. We know that those overheads are really challenging, and again, as the government of the day, we want to help and ameliorate that situation because, you know, for retail, for hospitality, for leisure, they form the backbone of our high streets, and they support our local economies and communities, providing those jobs, attracting those visitors, but they can't do it with that chokehold on them, as the Honourable Member himself said. So he asked for some more specifics around permanently lowering tax rates for such ventures. Well, we intend to introduce from 26-27 permanent tax cuts for those with rateable values for less than £500,000. They'll have certainty going forwards. They won't have to wait from budget to budget to see if cuts have been maintained. Those will be baked in. Indeed, I believe the legislation's been making its way today upstairs, and so that they will have that certainty around costs, so that they can plan and they can make sure they can operate their business in a profitable way. On top of that, I think there are other ways in which we can make life easier, tackling particularly the scourge of late payments and long payment terms. You know, we know that when we talk to small business and self-employed, that's a theme that comes back constantly. So we're introducing and launching a new fair payment code. We want people to engage with that to make sure it's real for the way in which they do their business, in order to make sure that they're not being caught in those ripple effects of bigger organisations who don't pay on time. Again, I think that's an important point on support. We've heard from the Honourable Gentleman the importance around energy costs. And we know that that's been a problem domestically, and we know that that's been a problem for business. And there are businesses now who were in that cycle of contracting when markets were at their most challenging and are now locked into longer deals. We would encourage them, businesses, non-domestic organisations, we would encourage them to engage with their supplier about moving away from those contracts agreed at higher prices and instead go to approaches such as a blend and extend contract to try and reduce that cost. But that gives short-term relief. But what we have to do in the medium and long term, as the Honourable Gentleman said, is change and transition away from fossil fuels and towards homegrown clean energy by establishing Great British Energy. We made steps in December around the 2030 action plan about our efforts to do so. And that will mean that there'll be access to that clean green energy. That also means that there will be domestic jobs, more money in people's pockets. That's the single biggest problem affecting my town, is that people simply don't have enough money in their pockets to shop. So again, winning each way with better energy, with keeping bills down, and with jobs too. Again, putting support and vitality back into our communities. My honourable friend mentioned transport, as did the Honourable Gentleman for Southend East and Rochford. And again, reliable bus and public transport services are vital to the economic success of our high streets. So we made announcements at the back end of last year around a £5.7 billion long-term transport settlement to transform the local transport networks of our largest city regions to help drive growth and productivity. Those routes that have been lost, perhaps bringing them back into use, but also a further £650 million for local transport outside city regions in this forthcoming year to make sure that we can improve connections between our towns, villages and rural areas, as well as our major cities. And then on the 17th of December, we introduced the Bus Services No. 2 Bill, which will put the power over local bus services back into the hands of local leaders, so that those decisions are ones that reflect the nature of the local community and the public transport is getting to the right places. we're also working closely, in terms of driving footfall and making sure the high street has the amenities that our constituents want and need. We're pushing hard on the rollout of banking hubs, and I know, having talked to colleagues, that's something of significant interest across the country. So we've got plans to roll out 350 such hubs. There's plenty of work to do on that, but again, that's about having those anchors on the high street that mean that people routinely come in and out of their town centre, and perhaps while they're there, they go for a cup of tea and whatnot. We know you need those staples, come what may, and that's an important way of making sure we protect banking. The honourable gentleman, my honourable friend, the member for Strangford, as well as the honourable member for Glastonbury and Somerton, talks about some of the ways in which government has funded projects previously. To be very clear, and I could do another hour on this, we want to move away from the competitive beauty parade style bidding process that has pitted communities against each other, created a lot of disappointment, and frankly has been less than the sum of its parts. Our approach to local growth funding will be more integrated settlements over longer term, with less central direction and more local choice. We think that's what will get the money to the areas that we need. We've got, in the meantime, the UK Shared Prosperity Fund and the transition year there, which is important, I know, in NI, having had the chance to go and see some of the services that paid for, but it's important also across the country. And colleagues can look for more information there when we get to the multi-year spending review later this year. So moving on with the time remaining to a couple of points around safety in town centres, which my honourable friend, the member for Hitchin, raised. And as the Chancellor's PPS, that he is surely our man with a direct line both on spending review and other things too. But that point around safety is so important. I know my honourable friend, the member for Basingstoke, has raised, as I have, and I tear my hair out at car meets. Really dogs my town has at times. And we've had to chase them and really be on it in order to push that kind of behaviours out of our town, because it's caused misery, it's caused anxiety, it's caused people not wanting to leave their house because they don't think they're safe. And that's true around crime in town centres more generally. And the honourable gentleman talked about that terrible phrase, low-level crime. I absolutely hate it. We conceded, the previous government conceded ground around theft under £200 that just led to an explosion of stealing, that has led to an explosion of other types of antisocial behaviour in our towns. It's made working in a retail environment at times a misery for people. We've seen staggering levels of violence, and we have to address that. And that's at the core of our Safer Streets mission. And we're committed to restoring neighbourhood policing through our neighbourhood policing guarantee. That's 13,000 more police and police community support officers as a visible deterrent. And the honourable gentleman asked about sort of timelines and where we are in the process. Well, the Prime Minister announced on the 5th of December our plan for change, which committed to a zero-tolerance approach to ASB. This means a dedicated lead officer in every force working with the communities to work up a local antisocial behaviour plan. It means recently announced respect orders will give police and local councils stronger enforcement powers. So those people who are disruptive persistently, and we could name them in our towns, and certainly our retail workers could, proper actions taken to change their behaviours. Yes, banning them from the amenity that they're disrupting, but also tackling the root cause of their behaviour, for example, through mandated alcohol and drugs treatment. But if people break respect orders, there are significant penalties, with offenders facing up to 2 years imprisonment, so a real deterrent. And of course, wanting to tackle that root, because we know that the behaviour of young people for time out of mind around town centres has always been a challenge, whether that's on bicycles, whether that's on causing shopkeepers challenges. So through our Young Futures programme, we want to give young people a positive thing to do, but also a chance to tackle offending where it happens and to reduce it. All of these together will make our communities safer for people to live, work and visit in. I'm coming to the end, Ms Vaz, so I will probably leave it there. There are important points, I think, to be made around housing and the role of making sure that as more housing is created in town centres, it's done in a sensible, planned way with local communities. I think most people would accept the value of that. But what we do see, if there isn't proper planning and coordination, is you end up with units in different places, and then that kind of weird and, I think, desperately sad situation where people end up moving in next door to a pub that may have been there for many years, then putting in complaints and that pub closing down because of public order and because of nuisance. You've got to plan these things so that residents can live alongside business in a way that promotes all of their interests. So to conclude, as I say, I think the interest of colleagues shows that we could have gone on for a very long time on this. I want to thank the honourable member for bringing this debate. It's a really brilliant way, I think, to start the new year. Our town centres are the beating hearts of our communities, and we're committed as a government to giving that support, We're going to continue engaging with business to make sure the things we're doing are reaching the places they need to. We'll work with parliamentary colleagues as well in that. There's an awful lot to go on in terms of business support, but also in public safety as well. So now's the time to grab this for our town centres, for my community, frankly, but for all of our communities. And I think we can make a real difference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. The question is that this House has considered government support for town centres. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order, order.